because I like loyalty in my personal life, I like respect, and I don't like a thief. If I drop a diamond on the floor, please don't pick it up in my home and put it in your pocket.
How long was this going on? And was there a conflict that you saw? Because I think your perspective is so important. A conflict between the people who are running the show and the family in terms of what's best for Wendy?
I don't think no one knew exactly to the extent how bad it was. I felt like people knew something was up with her, but they didn't really know. I knew it because I've been around it, you know. It's sad to see something like that happen to her. You know, she needs help.
You left your wife. Now, we may not care about her on the show. That's different. But you left your wife. Got you a side piece. Had a baby and was living a whole different life. And evidently, Wendy Williams was the real bread maker. Because now you can't live that lifestyle without that check. The grass wasn't green.
Something about this entire situation just doesn't sit right. And the deeper you look, the more complicated it seems to get. Over the years, Wendy Williams has always been known for speaking openly about other people's lives. But now it feels like her own story has layers that many people are only just starting to question. And honestly, some of the details coming out lately are raising more eyebrows than answers. One of the biggest talking points right now revolves around her relationship with Kevin Hunter. Their history has always been complicated, to say the least. But recently, there's been renewed attention on what may have really been going on behind the scenes during their time together. What's especially surprising is that Wendy's first husband, Bert Girigorie, has decided to speak up after staying silent for years. And that alone has people wondering just how serious things might actually be. He had largely kept his distance from anything involving Wendy since their split, so for him to come forward now suggests that, in his view, something isn't right. From what's being discussed, Bert is suggesting that Kevin may have played a role in Wendy's long-term struggles, particularly when it comes to her health. Now, to be clear, these are allegations and personal opinions, not confirmed facts, but they're still significant enough to spark conversation. The way it's being described, Bert believes Kevin may have contributed to keeping Wendy in a vulnerable state, even though it was widely known that she had dealt with substance-related challenges in the past. If that's even partially true, it paints a very different picture of what their relationship might have looked like behind closed doors. And honestly, when you look at everything that's happened over the years, it does make you pause for a second.
My thyroid, my hyperthyroid, is attached also to Graves' disease. Graves' disease squeezes the muscles behind your eyeballs. And so that's the reason for...
Williams said it was her viewers who convinced her to get checked out.
That is the eye thing that you all have been saying. You caught it.
Wendy's health situation has been a major concern for quite some time now. Many people remember the shift that started around 2017 when viewers began noticing that something felt off during her live appearances. There were moments where her delivery seemed different, her reactions didn't quite match the tone, and it became a recurring topic among audiences. Eventually, Wendy addressed part of what was going on by revealing that she had been diagnosed with Graves' disease. She explained that the condition could affect her physical expressions and overall energy, which helped explain some of the changes people were seeing on screen. She also mentioned that her noticeable weight loss was connected to a strict alkaline diet she had adopted in an effort to improve her health. At the time, a lot of viewers were supportive and gave her grace, understanding that she was dealing with something serious. But even with those explanations, not everything seemed to fully line up. There were still moments that left people confused, and over time, those concerns didn't exactly fade. They grew. Looking back now, some are questioning whether what was visible publicly was only part of a much bigger situation happening privately. Fast forward to today, and Wendy is not only facing ongoing health challenges, but is also caught in a complicated guardianship situation. That alone has sparked a lot of debate, with many wondering how much control she actually has over her own life right now. And when you connect all of these pieces, the past relationship dynamics, the health struggles, and the current legal situation, it creates a narrative that feels far from straightforward. Of course, it's important to remember that not everything being said has been proven, and there are multiple sides to every story.
For some time now, and even today and beyond, I have been living in a sober house. I am driven by my 24-hour sober coach back to a home, lights out by 10 p.m. So I go to my room and I stare at the ceiling and I fall asleep to wake up to come back here to see you. So that is my truth.
But at the same time, when people who were once close to the situation start speaking out after years of silence, it naturally raises questions. At this point, it feels like there's still a lot we don't know about what really happened behind the scenes. And until more clarity comes out, people are left trying to piece together a story that seems to get more complex the more you look into it. For a long time, there was this quiet narrative floating around about Wendy Williams, one that suggested she was dealing with more behind the scenes than what viewers were seeing on camera. Some people believe she was managing everything while under a lot of personal pressure, almost like she was pushing through no matter what because so many people depended on her show. And to be fair, when you look at how many jobs and moving parts were tied to her daily presence, that idea doesn't seem completely out of nowhere. But at the same time, it's important to treat that as speculation rather than confirmed reality. What really shifted public perception happened in March 2019. That's when Wendy openly shared that her struggles with substance-related issues had become much more serious than many people realized. And this wasn't a vague admission. She went into detail about actively trying to rebuild her stability. She revealed that she had been living in a sober house while continuing to work, which, if you think about it, is a lot for anyone to balance.
For me personally, this is not putting words in anybody who might be a substance abuser's mind. But, I was raised better than that. And I never been arrested and wrecked my stellar radio career. And I never embarrassed my parents who were still married.
So it never really took off. It just threatened you.
It just threatened me. I never was broke off. I was always able to pay all of my bills and I lived a good life.
So here's it. You never hit a bottom.
Right.
And you saw it coming and you were able to, whatever it is, God stepped in, your own resources, whatever it was, you were able to.
I wanted better for myself.
On top of that, she described sticking to a very strict daily routine, attending regular meetings, and having limited freedom while focusing on recovery. Hearing that was tough for a lot of people, especially longtime supporters, because for years, Wendy had presented herself as someone who had already moved past that chapter of her life. Back in 2003, she had openly talked about her past with substances, including cocaine use, and repeatedly emphasized that she had turned things around. So when this newer update came out years later, it hit differently. It made some people feel like maybe the situation had been more ongoing than anyone initially thought. And honestly, that realization is what made the situation feel heavier. But then another layer started to form, one involving Kevin Hunter and the people around her at the time. There have been ongoing conversations suggesting that her environment may not have been as supportive as it should have been. Again, these are claims and perspectives, not fully verified facts, but they've definitely added to the discussion. What adds even more context is what her first husband, Bert Girigorie, has shared about their earlier years together. According to Bert, he and Wendy started dating back in 1992 when she was working at a New York radio station. Their relationship lasted about 2 years before they got married in 1994.
My real name is Wendy Hunter. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm divorced.
Yes.
He's got no money. Yeah.
In the beginning, he describes things as fairly normal, nothing that immediately raised concern. But over time, he began noticing changes. He has said that he never personally witnessed her using any substances during their relationship, mainly because she kept that part of her life separate. However, he did observe shifts in her behavior that stood out to him. There were moments where her personality seemed different, almost like she wasn't the same person he initially got to know. And that's where things start to feel a bit complicated. From his perspective, these changes became more noticeable as their relationship progressed. It wasn't necessarily one specific moment, but more of a pattern that developed over time. He has described it as feeling like there were two versions of Wendy, one he recognized and another that felt unfamiliar. After they got married, Bert says he tried to encourage her to get support. And to Wendy's credit, he acknowledged that she did make efforts to improve her situation. According to him, there were signs of progress, and it seemed like she was trying to move in a better direction. But despite that, their marriage didn't last long. Looking back at all of this now, it adds another layer to the bigger picture people are trying to understand today. You have Wendy's own admissions, the public timeline, and then these personal accounts from people who were close to her at different stages of her life. None of it is completely straightforward and not every detail lines up perfectly. But when you place everything side by side, it does start to paint a more complex story than what was originally presented to the public. At the end of the day, it seems like Wendy's journey has been far from simple. And while there are still a lot of unanswered questions, one thing most people can agree on is that she's been dealing with challenges that go much deeper than what was visible on screen.
My situation over the 12 years that I've been here entertaining you on television. Welcome to Hot Topics, Sharina Hudson. Getting out of my car with my money. Good morning, Journey. She'll be almost I think she'll be 3 next month, don't you know? Good morning, Kelvin. It's my truth.
Looking at how everything unfolded over the years, the timeline itself raises a lot of questions. After separating from Wendy Williams, her first husband, Bert Girigorie, didn't just completely disappear from the picture right away. From what he shared, he still checked in from a distance, mainly because he wanted to see if she was doing better and moving in a healthier direction. But that eventually changed. Around the mid-90s, when Kevin Hunter entered Wendy's life, Bert says he stepped back entirely. Wendy and Kevin reportedly got together around 1996 and then married not long after in 1997. And from that point forward, Kevin wasn't just her partner, he became deeply involved in nearly every part of her life. He took on multiple roles at once: husband, manager, business partner, and someone who had a strong influence over both her personal decisions and her career path. And depending on who you ask, that level of involvement can either be seen as supportive or a bit overwhelming. There have been ongoing conversations suggesting that Kevin was very particular about who had access to Wendy. Some people felt that there was a level of control in how interactions were managed, which may have created distance between Wendy and others in her professional circle. Over time, that reportedly affected how people approached working with her. From one perspective, it's possible that Kevin believed he was protecting her or managing her environment in a way that kept things structured. But from another angle, some feel that it may have limited opportunities or made collaborations more complicated than they needed to be.
I'm not gonna take a lot of time because, I'm getting emotional. And I told myself I wasn't gonna do this.
That it was not till death do us part.
And it wasn't just an incident. I mean, the relationship that Kevin had with this woman went on for...
No. Kevin was a serial cheater. Kevin had different mistresses depending on, the part of his life. This last one was the one that he had the longest term relationship.
There's also been discussion around Kevin's reputation during that time. Some people in the industry were apparently hesitant to get involved in business deals that required going through him, not necessarily because of Wendy, but because of concerns about how negotiations or partnerships might play out. If that's accurate, it could explain why certain opportunities may not have reached Wendy directly. At the same time, it's important to remember who Wendy was before all of this. Long before Kevin came into the picture, she had already built a strong foundation for herself. She worked her way through college, pursued internships, and took on lower-paying radio jobs to gain experience. Eventually, she became a well-known voice in radio, earning recognition in major media markets. So the idea that she was entirely dependent on someone else from the beginning doesn't fully align with her earlier trajectory. Even Bert has suggested that when Wendy first got into her relationship with Kevin, she was actually in a strong position, both professionally and personally, which makes the later dynamic feel a bit harder to fully understand. One of the more serious claims that's been discussed is the idea that Wendy may have been pulled back into unhealthy patterns during that relationship. According to Bert's perspective, there's a belief that substances may have re-entered her life during that time, leading to a setback in her progress. Now again, these are allegations and interpretations, not confirmed facts, but they are part of the broader conversation that people are paying attention to. What makes this even more complicated is the suggestion that there may have been a balancing act happening behind the scenes. On one hand, there are claims that Wendy struggled privately, but on the other hand, she still maintained a level of professionalism publicly, showing up, performing, and keeping her career moving forward. That contrast is what stands out to a lot of people. It raises the question of how much was being managed behind the scenes versus what was visible to the audience. There are also mentions that people within Wendy's team may have noticed certain things, but felt limited in what they could say or do. And if that's true, it points to a work environment where speaking up might not have felt like a safe option for everyone involved. Of course, without direct confirmation from multiple sides, it's difficult to say exactly what happened or how accurate each claim is. But when you piece together the timeline, the relationships, and the different perspectives being shared, it does create a situation that feels far more layered than it might have seemed at first glance. At the end of the day, this isn't a simple story with clear answers. It's a mix of personal accounts, public moments, and ongoing speculation, leaving people trying to understand where the truth actually sits within all of it. As more people began revisiting the situation, a few voices from Wendy's inner circle started getting attention, and one of the names that kept coming up was DJ Boof.
The PI was taking pictures of them going to the gym, going to dinner, her with Gucci Poochie and
He had been a familiar presence on the Wendy Williams show for quite some time, so when he suddenly disappeared without any clear explanation, people definitely noticed. At first, it was just another quiet exit that didn't seem to get much clarification, but later on, it started to feel like there might have been more behind that decision. From what's been shared and discussed online, DJ Boof eventually hinted that his departure wasn't random. The way he described it, he reached a point where he couldn't just stand by and watch things unfold the way they were. There was a moment where someone commented that maybe the show should have been paused because Wendy didn't seem like herself. Instead of ignoring it, DJ Boof responded in a way that caught people's attention. He basically suggested that what viewers were seeing on the surface was only a small part of a much bigger situation. The way he put it, people behind the scenes were aware of what was going on, but speaking up wasn't so simple. According to him, there was a real concern about job security, and that made it difficult for anyone to step in or say something publicly. And if you think about it, that creates a very uncomfortable dynamic, because if multiple people noticed that something wasn't right but felt like they couldn't act on it, that leaves a lot of unanswered questions about what was actually happening during that time. Now, of course, this is based on his perspective, but it does line up with some of the other things that have been said. Then there are the ongoing conversations surrounding Kevin Hunter. His role in Wendy's life has been discussed from so many different angles, and depending on who's speaking, the picture looks very different. Some believe that Kevin had a significant amount of influence over Wendy, especially during the peak years of her show. There are claims suggesting that he understood how to manage situations in a way that kept things running, but also potentially kept Wendy in a vulnerable position. Again, these are allegations and interpretations, not confirmed facts, but they've become a major part of how people are trying to understand the situation. Another name that occasionally comes up in these discussions is Serena, who some believe may have been involved in the background in ways that aren't fully clear. There are theories suggesting she may have been aligned with Kevin at certain points, but there isn't solid confirmation on how accurate those claims are. Still, the idea that multiple people around Wendy could have influenced her environment has added another layer to the story.
But what I needed at the time, because I was running 100 miles an hour, and I was so much of a strong support structure for her and all the dreams that she wanted to accomplish, I needed somebody for me. And my new offspring, my daughter, who is a beautiful, beautiful spirit, she was not an oops baby. She was not a mistake.
When you look back at Wendy's personal life during that time, it becomes even more complicated. Despite reports of issues in her marriage, including infidelity and financial concerns, she appeared to stay committed to making it work for a long time. And that's something a lot of people have tried to understand. Why stay in a situation that seemed to bring so much stress? Some believe it comes down to trust. Trust that may have been built over years, making it harder to walk away even when things weren't ideal. Others think there may have been additional pressures behind the scenes that the public wasn't fully aware of. What makes this even more emotional is that even during periods where there were reports about her cognitive health, people close to the situation have suggested that Wendy still remembered certain experiences very clearly, especially moments tied to personal betrayal. And that says a lot, because regardless of everything else, those kinds of experiences tend to leave a lasting impression. As for public reaction, it's been intense. A lot of people online have shared strong opinions about Kevin's role in all of this. Some feel that he carries a large portion of responsibility for how things unfolded, while others argue that the situation is more complex and involves multiple factors. You'll see people say things like, from their perspective, Kevin may have taken advantage of his position, or that he should have handled things differently given how close he was to Wendy. But again, those are personal viewpoints, not officially proven conclusions. At the same time, there are also voices reminding others that we don't have the full story, and that it's important not to jump to definitive judgments without all the facts. And honestly, that's where things stand right now. There's a mix of first-hand accounts, indirect statements, and a lot of public interpretation. Some pieces seem to connect while others leave gaps that haven't been filled in yet. So while it's easy to form opinions based on what's been shared, the reality is that this situation is still unfolding, and there's likely more to it than what any single perspective can fully explain. When you step back and look at everything that's been said, one thing becomes pretty clear: this situation isn't as simple as it might seem on the surface. A lot of people feel like Kevin Hunter played a major role in how things unfolded for Wendy Williams. From their perspective, he wasn't just present during her most difficult moments. He may have contributed to the environment that made those moments even harder for her to navigate. That's a strong claim, of course, and it's important to remember that much of this is based on personal opinions, accounts, and interpretations, rather than fully confirmed facts. But at the same time, when you hear similar concerns coming from different directions, former partners, colleagues, and even viewers, it naturally makes people pause and think. Some people see it as a situation where Wendy was surrounded by individuals who should have stepped in more. Others believe it's more complicated than placing blame on one person, and that there were likely multiple factors at play: health struggles, personal decisions, pressure from the industry, and everything in between. And honestly, both perspectives can exist at the same time. What seems to resonate with a lot of people, though, is the emotional side of it all. Even those who weren't necessarily fans of Wendy have said it's difficult to watch someone go through such visible challenges, especially when it feels like those struggles were happening in real time, right in front of an audience. There's something about seeing a public figure slowly change while still being expected to perform that hits differently. It raises questions about how much support was actually there behind the scenes, and whether more could have been done at certain points. At the same time, it's also worth acknowledging that we don't have access to every detail. There are always layers to situations like this that the public never fully sees. And while it's easy to connect the dots in a certain way, the full picture is usually far more complex. Still, it's hard to ignore the feeling that Wendy went through a lot, physically, emotionally, and professionally, all at once. And maybe that's why this story continues to get so much attention. It's not just about celebrity drama, it's about trying to understand how things reached this point and whether it could have gone differently. So now I'm curious, how do you see it? Do you think Kevin had a bigger influence on Wendy's situation than people realize? Or do you feel like this is a case where multiple factors are being oversimplified into one narrative? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective on this. And if you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who's been following this story, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. Also, if you're looking for more stories like this, check out the video that's on your screen right now. There's plenty more celebrity drama to unpack there. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.